Hi, I'm Catherine Brunch of Canine Support, and thank you for joining us today to celebrate 50 years of Tellington TTouch. Today, I'm joined by Toni Shelbourne, who is one of our four UK TTouch instructors for companion animals. And today, we're going to talk about how TTouch can help dogs who are scared of fireworks and loud noises. Welcome, Toni. Great to have you here.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. The sun shone briefly today. It was lovely.
Yay.
So, before we get started, Toni, what drew you to Tellington Tea Touch in the first place?
Oh, that's a really cool question. So
Mm.
I was working for Guide Dogs for the Blind and I was in the staff training department. So I was training everyone how to work with dogs. And I thought my career of actually touching dogs every day was over. But a colleague of mine was training as an equine T-touch practitioner, and she started telling me all about it and showed me a few of the touches on myself. And I was like, wow, this stuff felt like I could feel how it was influencing my legs. And then she was so passionate about it. And I was sharing a house with a friend of mine at the time who had a Rottie who had arthritis in his elbows. And he'd often like really struggled to settle down in the evenings. And it was one of those evenings. And I just started to do these little circles. I had little tuition, less than an hour. Well, after 20 minutes, he was out like a light. We didn't have to give him any pain medication. And the next day, he looked sounder as well. And I was like, this stuff really works. And it seemed to coincide with the very first practitioner training course for companion animals to happen in the UK. And somehow I persuaded guide dogs to send me on it. And that's how it all started.
Amazing. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. That is so cool. And also, we have to mention that you've worked with wolves as well, haven't you? Just give us a brief bit about that.
Yeah, and that was T Touch's fault as well. I was sitting in my office one day and the phone rang and a wolf handler was on the other end saying, "Oh, I've learned a little bit about this T-touch thing. Would really be interesting to see what happens if someone who knows what they're doing comes and does some with the wolves." These are socialized wolves, so ones that are comfortable around people. So I went up one March morning and I stayed for 10 years. I ended up being a wolf handler, then I was a senior wolf handler, then I was the education officer and also head of welfare for the wolves. So if the wolves had any injuries or had to have any operations, I was the first port of call. And actually, I used T-Touch for one of our wolves who actually fractured his neck. He'd run into a tree stake being chased by his sisters, not watching where he was going, typical man. And rehabbed him. The vet said, he's probably never going to walk again. We got him up and walking within like 6 weeks, and he survived another 4 years. And a lot of that was down to T-Touch.
Wow, it's
Yeah.
amazing, isn't it? And I know we're kind of primarily talking about T-touch for dogs that are scared of fireworks, but you are also very passionate about cats as well, isn't it? So if you feel free to drip cats in
Yeah.
throughout today's interview, because I mean, cats must get scared of, I don't own a cat, so I don't know, but cats must get scared of fireworks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I've just come back from working for a cat with a cat in rescue today who's noise phobic. And all the
Mm.
same tension patterns show up in the cats as it does with the dogs. And you can help them just as much, by doing that work, doing that prep work, and it's interesting cats because they have to have the work in like little micro sessions. So, just have to drip feed a little bit at a time. But when they become T-touch addicts, then you can really see it. And yeah, it really helps them just as much. And with your rabbits, your small animals, your birds, any species with a nervous system that gets frightened of those bangs and whizzes, or any kind of like household noises or crop scarers, whatever it is, we can help them with T-touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a subject very close to my heart because my previous dog Keto, she became scared of loud noises right at the beginning of my T-touch training, which was just perfect timing to support her. And then when I adopted Chloe, oh my God, like I was tiptoeing around the house for months
Yeah.
because she was so scared of anything, shutting cupboard doors, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a passion of mine as well. So awesome. Right. So let's start then with When we talk about dogs who are scared of fireworks and loud noises, what are some of the signs that people might notice that indicate their dog is struggling?
Okay, so most people are going to notice the big signs, right? Like shaking, hiding, digging, not wanting to be touched, getting really frantic, hiding behind things. So you get different categories. You'll get those dogs that are really frantic, that run around and bark, and people just think they're excited or they're trying to tell the fireworks off, and actually, I'm like, no, they're frightened. And then you get the ones who are hiders, who want to sit and shake and don't want to go outside and probably don't want to go outside in the morning as well. Some dogs won't go outside for days, some weeks, sometimes months after fireworks. But the more subtle signs will be, your dog kind of just doing a little freeze when they hear a bang. They might stop eating. They might give calming signals, so they might yawn or they might kind of blink their eyes or lick their nose when they hear that noise. So I like to look for the little kind of symptoms, as it were, the little signs, because those are the ones that are probably a precursor to something worse happening, sort of a bigger thing coming on. So we can recognize those whispers, we can support them then instead of waiting for them to being really struggling. And
Yeah.
and we know statistically that if a dog is going to be fearful at a younger age, it will be within their first year. And then normally, if you've got them through their first year or so and they're okay with fireworks, then great, they'll probably be fine. But then you get that second category of when they get older, like 7+, start to get a bit of arthritis in the bodies. That's when it starts to happen. So if you have a dog that has been fine with fireworks and suddenly over a couple of years have started to get worse and worse, then that's definitely a vet check needed and probably pain relief, physio, whatever it is you need to support them. So yeah, so lots of signs, and people often say the big ones or the obvious ones of the dog looks terrified and they're shaking, but please don't ignore those ones that are barking because they're going to be just as frightened.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that whole kind of fight, flight, freeze scenario, isn't it? Is their survival response. Some might bark, some might go, "Oh, I can't move," and some might run away and hide. So it's looking at all those different varieties, isn't it? And I
And we
think,
have to be careful as well because even obviously our really mild-mannered dogs in that panic state may act aggressively towards us. And it's not because they're being aggressive, they're just really frightened, right? So
yeah.
we have to be careful of doing the T-touch, which is why prep is really important, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And touched on the kind of the pain aspect, but what do you feel is going on emotionally and physically when these dogs are scared of fireworks?
So physically, obviously, you're going to get a heart rate and breath rate is going to increase. They're going to get releases of stress hormones through the body, and if it's a continual like our firework season is, that's going to build and build and build. So they don't have any time to recover from that. And emotionally, we've got you get dogs who are fearful, dogs who are anxious, and dogs who have a phobia. They're all slightly different. So a fear is an instant reaction that doesn't last very long. So when we say our dogs are fearful of fireworks, actually what they probably have is a phobia or an anxiety about it. So you'll get some dogs who become generalized to lots of noises. So emotionally, they start to anticipate any noise being a firework. And then phobias are generally classed as being extreme reactions. It's like, oh, that's so scary, and it's really hard to then for them to shift like emotionally, from that if that phobia, as it were, because it gets kind of locked in the brain. Which is why T-touch is really good because we can access that and help to start change those hard wiring in the brain through the body.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, part of, like if there's a sudden bang that we hear, we're not expecting it, we might jump, and that's kind of normal, isn't it? But our
Absolutely.
dogs also have that similar reaction. It's just some kind of progress to actually you can't kind of switch out of it. And even if you've got a dog that kind of goes, "Oh, what was that?" Even just a little bit of T-touch in those scenarios, they might not be fearful completely. It's just a surprise, isn't it? So,
Yeah, yeah.
but we can still support those smaller moments as well. Just like we might go, oh, a bird flew into the window or something. It happens here in my house. Do you know? And I'm like, oh, it was just a bird. And Ray
Yeah,
does the same. She's like, what was that? And I'm like, oh, don't worry, it was just a bird.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, it's things like that as well,
yeah.
isn't
And I call that my emergency first aid T-touch. Like I'm out
it?
on a walk and suddenly a crop scarer goes off and we all jump and we're like, oh, what's that? Oh, it's okay. We'll just kind of do some work and kind of reset ourselves. So yeah, definitely in those moments, especially if your dog already has had T-touch in the past, the body will recognize it a lot quicker and be able to respond and calm down a lot quicker as well. So you'll find the recovery rate is a lot, quicker, it'll come like right down.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we think of like normal positive reinforcement training, we're always like you have to train for the situation, not in the situation. And in this respect, T-touch is very similar, isn't it? The more we can practice when they don't need it and we're just chilling on the sofa with our dogs, then the more effective it is when we do need it in that emergency situation, as you said.
Absolutely. And that's why I always say to people the 1st of October is a really important date for you in the UK, or the 1st of July if you're in the States, or whenever it is your big fireworks season happens, because that's when we should start really upping our game. Hopefully your dogs will be having T-touch throughout the year. But at that point, I'm like, right, every day I'm going to be doing a little bodywork session. Every day I'm going to be body wrapping. I'm preparing. I need to prepare so that when the big fireworks happen, all of that, influence on the body is already on board.
Yeah, brilliant. I love it. Awesome. So, what makes T-touch different or complementary approach compared to more traditional ways of dealing with noise fears?
Ah, right. So a lot of the time people will go, oh, I'll add a little supplement, or I'll do a bit of counter conditioning, or I'll do a little bit, do they do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and nothing really seems to work. I always say T-touch should be put together like a jigsaw puzzle. So T-touch is the main bit. So all those things that people have tried before, you should do them again, but all together. The different thing about T-touch is that we're actually, like I was saying, influencing that parasympathetic nervous system. We're changing the molecules of emotion that's held in the very cells of the body. So when dogs become fearful, it gets locked in their bodies in tension patterns. So they might have an area they don't want you to touch, or an area that feels tight, the skin feels gritty, or there is a curl or a swirl in the coat that shouldn't be, or an area is like hot or cold. And these are the areas where they might be holding that tension. And that basically tells the body how to react. So the body is telling the brain, you're stuck in a fear pattern. So what T-touch does is come along and change that. So we change the posture, that changes the behavior, and therefore then they can start mentally and emotionally coming around, acting more in a rational state. So I always say it kind of brings you back into that thinking part of the brain. So out of your amygdala and your hippocampus, which is constantly going, oh, there's a big danger there. Oh, you need to act this way too. Oh, actually, maybe I could change how I feel about that noise, or maybe I can go to my person and have support rather than hiding under a table and shaking. So we're helping those animals come into that more rational state. We're helping to change that molecules of emotion through the body. We can get stuck in these patterns, and those patterns really influence how we behave. So, an unrelated noise phobia one, but one I always give my clients is, my husband had a head-on collision years ago in his car. And if we're in the car now and we're going around the bend and it's a certain light and another car comes around the bend in the other direction, he braces the wheel waiting for the impact. So his body remembers that impact and prepares for it. Really should do some body work on him and change it. But our dogs are the same. They hear that noise and the body's like, oh, it's that noise again. I'm going to start to feel frightened. But if we relax those tension patterns, then they can start to go, oh, it's a noise. Oh, yeah, maybe that's not so bad then. So yeah, we're dealing with those emotions via the body. We're changing those tension patterns. We're helping them stand in a more confident state. Physical, mental, and emotional balance, they're all linked. And that's what we want. And that's why T-touch is the most successful thing I've ever come across for dealing with noise phobia,
Yeah.
because nothing else will change that internal state, those kind of those tension patterns. We can do everything else. We can body wrap, we can do stuff. If a dog is really struggling, if we don't do the body work, we probably won't see a massive shift.
Yeah, absolutely. Which kind of leads me on to, how does the T-Touch bodywork help a dog who's scared of fireworks? So, they've heard a firework go off, they've gone into that kind of freeze mode or something. What sort of touches and stuff would we do to help them out of that?
So in the moment, that's probably going to be different touches than we would do in our preparation.
Mm.
So in preparation, I would definitely want to be working the hindquarters and the tail. I definitely want to be working around the face and probably inside the mouth as well. And anywhere else where they're showing attention patterns, that might be the feet, that might be along the back, wherever it is that you find those tension patterns. In the moment, if they've had lots of T-touch, it's not something that you go, oh, I've never done T-touch on my dog before, and now they are, well, scared of the fireworks, so I'm going to come in and do some. That's not going to help. Well, it might do, you never know, but it might be also a bit dangerous for you as well, depending on their reaction. So, but in that moment, if they've done, if they, their body recognizes touches, I would go for sort of faster, random touches, because the nervous system's going to be really up here. If we come in with a really slow touch, it doesn't really meet. It's a bit like joining a motorway. If you want to go 50 and everyone else is doing 80, you have to join at 80 and slow down to 50 to be safe. So I often do things like springboks, zebras, and then I might start to do some ear work, which is really good for noise phobic dogs. And I would just then start to do maybe some 1 second circular touches randomly over the body. And the reason I go random is because the nervous system will then pay more attention to where that next touch is going to land. And that often will just pull them back into their bodies a little more, instead of them being, oh my God, the lights are on, nobody's home, I'm out there, I'm just thinking about external stuff. They'll start to kind of think about the internal stuff that happens again. And that can kind of just bring them back into the room to
Yeah.
help them. So you kind of bring them down through those layers, start a bit faster, a bit more random, and then you can start to slow down as they start to calm down. And that's usually how I do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, um, what's so great about there's so many different tea touches is that if I found this recently with Chloe in a thunderstorm we had, I would be ear slides, zebra touch, bringing her back kind of thing. And I'm like, this isn't working today, I mean, she gets lots anyway, so it's not a problem. She's very used to it. And I just found myself doing hair slides. I was like, I don't know what to do, so I'm just it was like I just started doing it without thinking about it. And I'm doing these little hair slides, and suddenly she's just like calming right down. And I was like, wow, well, I didn't think a hair slide would have that kind of effect when we're talking about fear of fireworks. So, and that's the great thing, isn't it? If something's not working, we just change it and do something else instead. But obviously, in that day, her system needed something different.
Yeah, but also don't think to yourself it's not working. So I've had
Well, yeah,
clients who've kind of gone, oh, well, I've done it in the moment. It didn't seem to change anything. But then the next time they encounter the same situation, the dog's recovery rate has come down.
yeah,
So it's, even if it feels like nothing's changing, it will be, and it'll be, you'll notice it further on down the line. So for people who panic and go, oh, I'm doing this and it's not, it doesn't seem to be making that influence, keep going. It will be.
yeah. Because I could have just given up in that moment and gone, well, okay. But I was like, oh no. And just these luckily she's got quite long hair around her neck, so that was quite easy for me. So yeah, I love it. Awesome. So you've mentioned wraps, so the T-Touch wraps. How can we use those to help our dogs with fireworks?
So this is again where the prep comes in, and I'd be introducing a body wrap about a month before, hopefully throughout the year, just kind of randomly putting it on, because obviously we can use it for lots of different situations rather than just noise phobia. But when we put that body wrap on, it's just so settling for the dogs. They kind of get their own emotional support from that, instead of having to have it from us all the time. So for those dogs who are like Velcro dogs who look like they want to get under our skin, the ones who seek us out when they're frightened, what you'll find is they can be a little bit more independent when they're wearing that wrap. We often describe it as being a portable hug or a security blanket. And I think it really does just help them to be able to settle that nervous system, give the proprioceptive system and the tactile system different information. And it enables just to kind of just calm everything down. So they, like I say, just start to become their own emotional prop rather than having to always get that off us. And interestingly, if we use it enough, what we tend to find is when you have that sudden, oh my goodness, I didn't know there was fireworks tonight. Oh my goodness, there's a firework, there's a thunderstorm happening. You get the wrap out and you notice that the dogs are like, get that on me now. I really need that. And once it goes on, they just, okay, I can go and settle down, or I can lie next to you on the sofa. I can sleep. It really just is so good for just settling them. And of course, we're not going to want to be doing body work on them constantly through the firework night. So having that body wrap on will just remind the nervous system, to remind everything to just calm down and settle and give them that ongoing support.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we need to think about sort of thunder shirts and stuff in the same way, isn't it? Practicing well beforehand when there aren't any noises, rather than just having a thunder shirt and going, "Oh, right, fireworks tonight. Here you go, stick it on," and then you're like, "Oh, nothing's happening."
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And that obviously can become a trigger then of, oh my goodness, a fire, the thunder shirt's coming out, and now there's a firework. So
yeah.
you wanted to, I've never known it to happen, but it potentially could happen. And I also just want to say to people, thunder shirts do not need to be on as tightly as the packaging tells you, the information tells you. In the olden days, we used to use human t-shirts on the dogs, and they were like really baggy, and they still had that influence. And if something is on you too tight, it becomes irritating pretty quickly. So just make sure you just loosen those thunder shirts off a little bit to make sure you can get your hand underneath it at all points.
Yeah, it's a bit like putting your favorite jumper on, isn't it? Because your favorite jumper's going to probably be a little bit baggy and nice
Yeah,
and snug and warm, isn't it? So
absolutely.
awesome. And what about our T-Touch groundwork and free work? How can that help our noise sensitive dogs?
So let me tell you a story about a dog that I went to see on the 3rd of November a few years ago. I was called in because they couldn't touch this dog. It already felt like it was a war zone where they were. There were fireworks going off all around them. And I was like, okay, so she doesn't want to be touched. So let's just put some groundwork out. So we just put some elements out, really easy stuff for her to walk over and through and on. Put it in the lounge. It was farthest away from like any doors or windows. And we just encouraged her off lead to go through these elements. And after a while, she calmed enough for me to then be able to get my hands on her. We then started just chatting, and I looked around, and this dog was going through the confidence course by herself. And I was like, okay, well, it's the 3rd of November. I probably have had no influence. This is not gonna, I haven't had enough time. She's not been prepped. I had an email a couple of days after the 5th of November saying how well she'd done. And and the way in for her was the confidence course. And I found that as well for dogs who are anxious about, crop scarers or gunshots and stuff, doing the confidence course outside, combining that with the body wrap and the body work can really help them to start changing their opinion and be able to cope. It gives them something else to do, but also we're still influencing that proprioception there, how they carry themselves. So it goes back to that physical, mental, and emotional balance. So we can help them use their bodies in a better way, then that's going to directly affect their emotional and mental state as well.
And I think building their confidence with new and novel items and surfaces as well, isn't it? Because,
Yeah.
it has maybe nothing to do with noises going off, but actually, if we can just give their whole confidence a bit of a boost, then that really supports them in those more frightful moments as well, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, and you think about if you are on, if you can't balance your body well, if you're like on a slippery surface, you tense up, which makes you then more anxious and fearful anyway. So, and how many of us have now laminate flooring? The dogs are like on ice the whole time. It's like the best thing for us, worst thing for the dogs forever. If we can teach them to use their bodies in a more effective way, if they're more balanced physically, they're not going to have to tense up, which is going to help them not create tension patterns, which might actually have also have been the cause of the noise phobia to begin with. So we've got
Mm.
to think about, is it the behavior causing the physical, or the physical causing the behavior? And sometimes it takes a little bit of detective work to find that out.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well the whole when we think of free work, all the sniffing and the exploring and the if you've got licky elements as well, they're all natural self-calming activities for our dogs too, isn't it? And not only that, but obviously if fireworks are going off, we tend to try and walk them more in the daytime, in the daylight hours, don't we? And so in the evening, they might get to that kind of witching hour of I've got lots of energy. And so giving them something else to do to also just help tire them out and calm them down is really supportive as well.
Yeah, if they will eat in that moment,
Hmm.
sometimes the fireworks are going off, they're not necessarily wanting to. But again, if you've done the prep work, then you'll often find they will start eating again anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And also very important to have lots of water down for them too, isn't it? Keep
Yeah,
them
and move that
hydrated.
water bowl nearer to them. Because if it's
Mm.
in the kitchen and they don't want to move and they're panting, then you need to be able to give them. Obviously, there's then that trade-off of the fact that they might need to go for a wee. But what I tend to do with any of my dogs is like on those really bad nights, I don't put them out for their last night wee. All my dogs have always sleep with me. So they'll wake me up at 3 or 4 in the morning and I'll let them out then.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
risk it. There's no point.
No, definitely, definitely. Brilliant. So, if someone knows fireworks are coming up, how can they start using T-Touch in the days or weeks beforehand to help their dog cope better? So, would you have like a kind of step-by-step plan, or would you just start introducing the body work and
Well, of course, every dog's going to be different. There will be very specific places where you'll probably find there's going to be more tension, like hindquarters and tail and mouth, etc. But we need to basically just do any touches that you can think of that you know. Anything is going to help, but it's the consistency. It's like I would say 1st of October or 1st of December, 10 minutes every day if the dogs want it. Pop that body wrap on for about the same amount of time. Again, if they wanted that, if they want it a little bit longer, that's fine. If they want the body work a little bit longer, that's fine. But just try and get that work in. And then on that night, do a body work session earlier in the day, pop them in that body wrap or thunder shirt, whatever you're using. And if they're supervised and they're comfortable, leave that on for the duration, as long as you can. If it's safe to do so, top that work up. So, for example, your dog's asleep on the sofa and a big bang goes up and they kind of startle. Like we were saying earlier, just reach down, do a few more touches. You don't necessarily have to look at them. You don't have to talk to them. I'm really matter of fact about it because I think if I start paying lots of attention to it, then that obviously then start going, well, why are you paying loads of attention to it? So the first thing I always ask to my clients is, what do you do when you hear a bang? And often they all say, I hold my breath and look at my dog. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's not going to help your dog. So, or we get annoyed because we're upset for our dogs. So just being really calm and, taking deep breaths and exhaling, giving your dog a calming signal so you can yawn yourself or kind of look away from them or blink your eyes. All these things are going to help calm them down. But yeah, you can top it up if you need to. And then once they go back to sleep again, just stop and just kind of just be there for them. That usually is enough.
yeah, because I think one of the myths is that, comforting your dog will reinforce their fear, but actually, it's not, is it?
Oh, we just did that a long time ago.
Yeah. What were my other questions? So, how can guardians combine T-Touch with other support like medication, supplements, or management strategies in the home?
So there's nothing that T-Touch doesn't mix well with.
Hmm.
And I often say, great if you've got pet remedy or rescue remedy, or you're using homeopathy or essential oils if you know about those. Of course, pet remedy is essential oils in effect. Combine it all, don't just use one thing. Often I find that if we're using all these strategies, and we're using a body wrap and bodywork and then some calming supplements, we won't need to go to medication. However, if the dogs are a danger to themselves or to their people, then that may be a time when you start talking to your vet about having some behavior meds. But we have to remember those behavior meds often need to have time to get on board. So some of them may take 4 or 6 weeks to actually have an effect. So we need to start early. And vet nurses tell us, people are terrible for coming in the day before and saying, give me drugs. It's not going to work. There are a few that will, however, they're really hard to administer at the right times, etc. All of these drugs may have side effects that, will influence your dog. There's some really old medication that hopefully no vets ever use anymore, but used to be really popular, which basically just immobilizes the body but not the brain, so it makes them even more frightened. So you have to know what you're doing, research any medications your vet might want to prescribe, but remember it's going to take a while to get on board and you may have those side effects. So try all the other stuff combined before the safe stuff. And remember that even if it says it's natural doesn't necessarily mean it's safe. So you need to know if your dog is on medication anyway for a different ailment, whether something you're going to add in will influence that or count it out, so really kind of do your study with it.
Yeah. And I have to say this year was the first time I've kind of properly used the pet remedy. It was just the wipe things. With Chloe, we had a rook scarer going off about 3 weeks in the end, and I haven't seen her that scared in years. And I happen to have some of these little pet remedy wipes, and I just popped it on the bed, and I was like, do you want a bit of a sniff of that? And so she lay next to it, and I was like, oh, it's interesting. And then she went and got in her bed, and I was like, okay. So just left it there. It definitely helped, mixed in with the
Yeah.
bodywork, the wraps, and everything else as well. And it was almost kind of like she's had some TTouch, she's had a wrap on, okay, great. But I kind of just want to let her process all of that and give her, so she's got this nice smelly stuff to help her as well. I can do a bit of work for a minute and then, revisit and how you're doing now sort of thing. So yeah, it was definitely a really nice add-on
Yeah.
to support her with it. So
Yeah. Just look at that. Think of that jigsaw puzzle. T-top's a
mm,
big bit in the middle, then you but all everything around the edge, and it will, everything together will make it even more effective.
we haven't mentioned music. So, there's lots of stuff on YouTube, isn't there? Calming music for dogs and all that kind of stuff. Would you add that in as well?
Yeah, absolutely. But again, I'd add it in early to
Mhm.
find the right kind, because one dog might like the classical music, another dog might like sound masking by a white noise or a pink noise. So you have to kind of experiment. What you're looking at there is, like I say, it's called sound masking. We're kind of having a constant noise in on that might just mask those external sounds a little bit better. Um, you know, and they can help. But sometimes, some dogs might like the noise of the washing machine. Some might like condition, not conditioners. What are they called? The things that keep you cool. Those
Oh,
sounds.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
aircon.
yeah, aircon. Yeah. So you
Not
can
in
have it.
November.
Yeah. But no, it's just the noise.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But yeah, play around with it. And there has been some research that says some dogs do really well with reggae.
Mm, Bob Marley,
Yeah.
apparently.
So it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be classical if you don't like classical
Yeah.
music.
No,
Find what your dog
definitely.
likes. Just make sure there's no bangs and crashes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think because another thing is, the fireworks start going off, turn the TV up and all that kind of stuff. But actually we don't want to turn the TV up too much, do we? Because that can also be quite upsetting for our dogs, can't it?
Well, absolutely, especially if they're not used to that level of the sound. And again, you don't know what's going to happen on a program. Is there going to be a noise there? Is there going to be silence where it's not really masking outside? So that's where I think, some of these constant noises could be useful.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Um, so what are some of the common mistakes people make when trying to help a dog who's frightened? And we've talked about how they might act out of character. I'm thinking what mistakes might people make in those scenarios?
I think definitely it's how we deal with our emotions.
Mm,
So often we can make it worse, if we talk babyish to them, if we are, but also the other extreme of we just leave them alone and we're not there for support. I feel so sorry for those dogs where people just go, oh, I go out and leave my dog. And I'm like, oh, your baby really needs you right now. So that thing of, yeah, leave them alone to deal with it doesn't work. But when we do help them, we need to act confident. We need to be like looking like we don't care about it. And again, I'll give you another example. And again, it's not a noise phobic example, but it was one when we were raising wolf cubs. And one of them was particularly anxious about objects, like something out of place, which is very normal for a wolf. They are constantly, oh my goodness, there's something that might be scary over there. So what a lot of the handlers would do, and they'd be like, "Oh, come on, let's go, Maya, you'll be okay." And I'd watch it for a while, and I go, "Right, just give it to me," and I'd just stand there, and I kind of just look around, and then she'd look at me, and I look at her, and she's like, "You're right, yeah, I'm all right. Should we go? Yeah, okay, we'll go." And we just used to walk off because I wasn't making a big deal of it. I wasn't talking to her. I wasn't going, "Oh, there, you poor little thing." I was just like, "I don't care about that noise." So
yeah.
she was like, "Oh, you don't care about it. I don't care about it either then." So yeah, how we deal with our emotions. If we are overly emotional, like I was saying earlier, if we are upset, dogs don't know we're not upset at them, but also they'll be reading our, internal, our smells and everything that comes off us as well. So yeah, it's about regulating our behavior as well.
Mm. And I think for a dog that's kind of tucked itself away and hidden somewhere, what would be a mistake that people can make in that scenario?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you don't want to pull them out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah, just let the dogs go where they want to go and in the room that they want to go. So I often say to people, if the dogs want to be in the bedroom under the bed, just go and lie in the bed with them. Watch TV in bed, Doesn't matter if they're under the bed, as long as you're there, you're kind of monitoring them at a distance, then that can be really useful. The other thing I wouldn't do if you've got a dog that's like racing around, I wouldn't restrain them. I'd probably have them in a smaller room and I may just do a few touches as they run past. But again, I wouldn't restrain them because in their panic, like I say, they may then, redirect onto you and maybe give you a nip or a bite. Same with the dogs that hide. You don't want to be pulling them out there because again, in their moment of terror, they may act out of character.
Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant advice. Thank you. And Tony, you've written some great books. I think I've got all of them. Help My Dog Scared Of, dot, 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 dot. Tell me about your books that you've written.
Yeah, so it's a series of books that some of them I wrote by myself, some of them are co-written by my lovely friend who sadly is no longer with us, Karen Bush. And she came up with this idea of we need books that tell everybody everything they need to know about one behavior problem. So that's where the help series. So help my dog scared of fireworks, help my dog scared of the vet, help my dog has a canine compulsive disorder, help my dog doesn't travel well. They go on and on. I think there's six of them all together. And it literally all of them have a massive section on T-Touch and how which T-Touches are really useful for that particular issue. But it also then has why the dogs might suffer from that. There'll be training plans in there. There'll be information about alternative remedies you can use, everything you can think of. Everything we knew at that time of writing, we put it in one space. And we call them skinny books because they're quite thin, because, there's not so much you can say about some behaviours. We also call it skinny books because we, at the time, both lived with skinny dogs. So I had the lurcher and she had whippets.
Brilliant stuff. And they're really, really helpful books, aren't they? And a great place to kind of start as well if you're like, well, how else do I look into this stuff?
Yeah.
As well as that, you are also involved in the online TTouch training, and you've got a self-study firework course. Where can people find that?
Yeah, so back in the days when we were COVID and lockdown, we couldn't do anything, we started to develop these online courses. I've now developed loads of what we call applied T-touch. So sometimes when people learn about T-touch, they don't necessarily know like how to then use it in the real world. So I do these applied T-touch courses, and one of them is for dogs who are scared of fireworks and other noises. And you can find that they're all on our learning platform. The easiest way probably to go and find them will be go to ttouch.ca. So that's our Canada site. Go into the shop bit, then you'll find the online courses and you're looking for the self-paced courses and you'll find it in there.
Brilliant stuff. Awesome. And my last question, what is your favorite TTouch and why?
I have to say it's the Springbok.
Amazing. Can you give us a demonstration?
So Springboks are like really easy. They're like just sliding and jumping. It's like an antelope jumping really quickly all over the body. And I just find that so useful for so many of the clients and the dogs that I work with because in those moments when the dogs can't listen, when the moments where everything's just too much, we can really bring them down to earth really quickly. So if your dog's overexcited when you come in the door, Springboks could be useful. If they're shouting at something out the window, Springboks are the ones that will start getting them to kind of come away from that window. If your dog's had a big scare and is like, I can't listen to you, I can't sit, I can't do anything, I'm going to do some Springboks to bring them back down to earth. So yeah, I use Springboks quite a lot. I love them.
Awesome. And it's kind of meeting them where they're at, isn't it? Do you
Yeah,
know, it's that seeing the dog in front of you at that moment in time, what T-touch can I use
yeah,
to meet that kind of energy, isn't it?
absolutely.
Brilliant. I love it. Thanks so much, Tony. It's been
You're
awesome
welcome.
speaking to you.
You're welcome.
I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take
Yeah.
care. Bye
Bye.
bye.